When I talked about Spectacular Spider-Man, you guys loved it. But I also got a ton of comments telling me about another Spider-Man show that was peak, and yeah, it really is peak. See, back in the 90s, the X-Men had a ridiculously popular cartoon, so Marvel wanted to make more superhero cartoons. They tried with Iron Man, but that only lasted one season because no one cared about Iron Man back then. Boy, how times have changed. Fantastic Four also lasted one season because apparently it was really bad. Hulk was pretty decent, but season 2 was not. Even Silver Surfer had a show, which only lasted one season. None of these could match the success of the X-Men, except one. In 1994, Spider-Man the Animated Series aired. Christopher Daniel Barnes voiced Spider-Man, and look, this man is amazing as Spider-Man. It's like him, Josh Keaton, and Yuri Lowenthal are my top 3 favorite Spider-Man voice actors. I'm actually putting Barnes at number 1 because he puts so much passion into this role. I wish I could show some audio, but trust me, you can tell this man loves the character. His internal monologue as Peter is so good, and honestly, I wish we got more of him the way Kevin Conroy voiced Batman across multiple projects. Barnes deserved that same treatment. He has shown up since though, such as voicing Spider-Noir, Spider-Man 2099, and even villains like Electro, but still, such a waste of talent. Also, just like Spectacular, this show had an epic theme to it. Now, I wasn't alive when this show first aired, but when I finally watched it on Disney Plus, I loved it. And when you really break it down, this show quietly shaped so much of modern Spider-Man. So let's rewind and start with Season 1. Season 1 introduces a new Spider-Man villain almost every episode, like Lizard, Doc Ock, Mysterio, Scorpion, Kraven, Chameleon, and Venom. We'll get to him in a sec. And let me just say, this show nailed something amazingly. See, in the 60s cartoon, villains would just show up. They had no origins, they just showed up. But in this show, they have origins. For example, the Lizard was just Kurt Connors in Florida. Doc Ock had no connection with Peter. But here, Connors is Peter's teacher, Peter helps create the Lizard Serum, sound familiar, and Peter actually looked up to Otto Octavius, sound familiar. And when you really think about it, so much of Spider-Man media that we have today came from this show. J. Jonah Jameson is even given an actual reason to hate Spider-Man. Eddie Brock works at the Bugle, which he didn't in the comics, but because of this show, every future Eddie Brock does. Also, let's talk about the love interest. Instead of Gwen Stacy, we get Felicia Hardy because I don't think the creators wanted people just waiting for Gwen Stacy to die, so they kind of changed it up and made Felicia one of the love interests. We also get Mary Jane, and honestly, they ripped her straight out of the comics. She's done pretty well. Kingpin is introduced as the man behind everything, and while he wasn't as popular back then as he is now, this show really helped build that reputation. Also, the series loved multiple episode arcs, like 8-parters, which was insane for a kids show back in the 90s. Now let's talk about Venom. In the comics, the symbiote was mostly just a cool suit with one drawback. Here, it makes Spider-Man aggressive. Sound familiar? Yeah, the show started that too. Venom's design is also great with those blue and red highlights that actually get referenced today. And to wrap up Season 1, we get Hobgoblin voiced by Mark Hamill. Yeah, pretty strong start. So how does Season 2 follow that up? Well, Kingpin is officially done with Spider-Man and assembles 6 villains to take him down. That's right, he has formed the Insidious Six? Huh? Yeah, just remember, this is a kids show, and I don't think they were allowed to actually say the word sinister due to censorship, whatever. At the same time, Peter starts losing his powers. The twist? His abilities are actually evolving, and this is only stage 1, meaning he might turn into a monster. We also see Hydro Man, but anyway, Peter seeks help from Professor X. That's right, we have an X-Men crossover. But in the end, Peter still has no answers, so he turns to Dr. Crawford, and then immediately takes an untested formula. He also leaves his blood sample for Morbius. So yeah, Peter takes an untested formula. I'm sure nothing will go wrong though. Oh my goodness. Oh! Imagine seeing that as a kid. Anyway, Morbius turns into a vampire. Felicia blames Spider-Man for what happened, so the police are now after him. And then, yeah, the Punisher shows up. But it doesn't really matter because yeah, we now have the Man-Spider. Kraven and Punisher team up to stop him. Peter is thankfully cured, for now, and Morbius escapes. Oh, and Blade shows up! And Morbius tries turning everyone into vampires, but ends up becoming a Marvel Man-Bat knockoff, I guess, and flies away. Then we get the Tablet of Time, which can restore youth. Silvermane wants it, Kingpin wants it, and apparently it might even cure Peter. Silvermane does, however, get it, and he gets his youth back a little too much. The tablet ends up with Vulture, who uses it to make himself young and turns Spider-Man into an old man dealing with old man problems. Eventually, Connors fixes everything by spreading the mutation to Vulture. Okay then. Season 2 did pretty well adapting some of Spider-Man's weirdest comic book stories. The closest any of the movies ever got to this was Spider-Man 2 when Peter lost his powers, but even then he didn't turn into a giant man spider. Now Season 3. Mary Jane gets a note from her estranged father, asks Peter to come with her, and immediately gets kidnapped into a ninja cult where she has magical powers? Okay. Thankfully, Doctor Strange shows up, and somehow, despite all the magic, still feels like a Spider-Man show. Mordo reconnects people with lost loved ones, and we get a genuinely touching moment between Peter and his parents. After failing to stop Doc Ock, Peter wants to quit being Spider-Man, which he does every season, but honestly that's pretty accurate. But then Madam Web shows up to tell Peter to stop being a grumpy because her father was in the Amazon first. I'm sorry, I had to do that. If you don't know, Madam Web is like an interdimensional being, and she's voiced by Stan Lee's wife. She prepares Peter for future trials and recreates almost the word-for-word storyline where Spider-Man visits a dying child. It's incredibly well done, and truly a very emotional story. Then Norman Osborn finally becomes the Green Goblin. We get Big Wheel, Rocket Racer, and then a Kingpin arc where Peter is framed and needs a lawyer, Matt Murdock. You see, this show nails the Spider-Man Daredevil team-up, which is something that I really hope the MCU does in Brand New Day. Kingpin also turns Alistair Smythe into whatever this is. Also, Venom returns, Carnage is born, and Spider-Man teams up with War Machine and Iron Man to stop them. Eddie actually gets development and then gets sucked into a portal. We also get the first animated appearance of the Spot, who actually sacrifices himself to stop his portals from destroying everything. I wonder if we're going to get something like that in Beyond the Spider-Verse. It would definitely be very heartbreaking. Green Goblin also steals a time dilator, learns Peter is Spider-Man, and during a bridge fight, MJ falls into it. Everyone thinks she's dead. Goblin falls in too, and that takes us right into Season 4. In Season 4, Peter wants to quit again, but after Robbie is framed, he saves the day, and even J. Jonah Jameson helps out, going by Jigsaw Jameson? Okay. In the end, though, Robbie convinces Peter to continue being Spider-Man. It's actually really well done. Felicia also finally becomes Black Cat, Blade returns, and Morbius is also back too, and Harry becomes the new Green Goblin. And crazy of all, MJ returns! Somehow. Don't worry, this will be explained later. Mysterio comes back as well, but the real villain is Miranda Wilson. Apparently this is an original character. But I think what's more important is that Peter actually reveals his identity to MJ and proposes to her. In Season 5, Peter and MJ get married, but we immediately dive into a storyline about Peter's parents, World War II, Red Skull, Captain America, Electro finally showing up, and is also Red Skull's adopted son. But here's what I love. He has his starfish hat, but yet he's still threatening. Like, see, you know, they nailed that. But the storyline is still a little bit forgettable. Then we find out MJ is actually a clone. Yeah, which is how she somehow returned, and she actually dies, and we get this very tragic moment that has now turned into a meme. Okay, with all hope gone, Madam Web returns because her father was in the Amazon. I'll stop. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Anyway, Madam Web comes back, Secret Wars happens, Spider-Man is the focus, but while that would be awesome, in the comics, he's not the focus. And while, yes, one of the best parts of Secret Wars does involve Spider-Man, even still, like, he's not the focus, and this was done. It could have been done better, and I really do hope the 2027 film nails it. Anyway, Doctor Doom actually does show up, but it's only, like, it's really not that long, which, again, that really is unfortunate. And it turns out, this whole thing was just a test. Yeah. So Secret Wars was kind of pointless. But it was to prepare Spider-Man for the, whatever. I think it was probably just to sell toys. But anyway, let's get on to the finale. Spider-Man returns home to find the world destroyed, and the villain is Spider-Man? Yeah, it's a version of Peter who lost everything and let Carnage take over him. So Madam Web assembles Spider-Man variants, possibly the first use of the Spider-Verse ever. And Christopher Daniel Barnes voices all of these variants, by the way, and absolutely nails all of them, especially the Carnage Spider-Man. That one is so creepy. And speaking of, this character is defeated in the most perfect way possible, with Uncle Ben giving an emotional talk that's just, that's a perfect way to defeat him. But then we end off with one of the greatest cameos of all time, Stan Lee swinging along with Spider-Man, playing himself. It was literally the perfect way to have Stan Lee make an appearance. And in the end, Madam Web and Spider-Man search for the real MJ, and then yeah, so this show, just like Spectacular, was cancelled and gone far too soon. It wasn't The reason for this cancellation was because of funding issues. Still, I wouldn't call it the worst ending ever. While it would have been nice to have a season 6, I'm still able to accept this ending. It's still a pretty bittersweet ending, so I'll let it, I'm willing to accept it. However, though, with X-Men 97, Spider-Man did make a cameo with MJ back, and I think now fans want a Spider-Man 98, which would be awesome to have. But I will only accept it if Christopher Daniel Barnes returns to voice Spider-Man. That's the only way I'll accept it. In conclusion, Spectacular Spider-Man is still my favorite, but this show is right up there. It shaped so much of Spider-Man as we know him today, and portrayed him exactly how he should be portrayed. And if you want me to talk about another Spider-Man show, I already know which one. Let's just say it's a discussion that I would love to have. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Click this video right here. YouTube thinks you like this one the best. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys.